Neighbor committed arson on my property and police are not recommending charges. What can I do? Posted by Annoyed Catfish. We're in Texas, outside of city limits. This situation is complicated due to ongoing harassment. I'll try to add enough context for background leading up to the actual event and how the county sheriff's office has responded. Our neighbor has been harassing us for years. We've repeatedly asked them not to contact us and filed multiple police reports on recommendation from our lawyer to document his harassment, resulting in the sheriff's office telling us that it's a civil matter and not criminal, so there was nothing they could do. About a year ago, we filed a civil lawsuit for harassment with hours of video footage. The list includes stalking, defamation, threatening to kill our dogs, conspiring with someone to file a false report in which they stated I was screaming I wanted to off myself after receiving text messages stating I needed to off myself, and much, much more. We have moved due to the last incident, which put us in fear for our lives and prompted the lawsuit due to the sheriff's utter lack of an investigation. 2 months ago, our neighbor came onto our property, which is a vacant lot adjacent to our home, and he cut down the majority of the trees and then set fire to them. We only noticed after the fire reached above the tree line, and the fire department had to respond. We have everything on video. When the sheriff responded, our neighbor lied to the officer, stating that he was the caretaker. At first, the officer was dismissive and thought it was a misunderstanding on our part. Then, after the sheriff left the scene, our neighbor texted us that we needed to talk about maintaining our land for the community. So, when the officer called us, we showed him the text and the video footage. We explained that we have a criminal trespass warning against him and that he has never been the caretaker. They said they would recommend a warrant for arson, specifically because he lied to the responding officer. 2 months go by, and the case is still unassigned. We've called multiple times a week, and nothing has happened. Yesterday, we finally got a detective assigned, and they told us this was a neighbor squabble and would not recommend charges to the DA. We are beyond frustrated at this point. We have the civil lawsuit, in which we're now seeking additional damages for the arson, but how do we prevent our neighbor from causing any additional damage or committing criminal acts against us, since the sheriff's office refuses to do anything? Can we contact the DA? Should we go to news stations to draw attention to the sheriff's negligence in investigating the crime? We are in desperate need of help and advice. I have a call scheduled with our lawyer, but I'm trying to understand our rights and if there's any recourse. Do you think OP should lawyer up for this one? Am I just overreacting? Posted by Queen of Samain. I've been living in a duplex with my husband and mother for a few years now. For the past 3 years or so, the neighbor in the next unit has been disrespectful toward us. All because she believes we are Hispanic, even though we have said that we are Italian. I mean, even if we were Hispanic, it doesn't give you the right to be disrespectful. She's also verbally harassed my landlord. She never pays her rent on time, doesn't answer the landlord's messages. I know this because my landlord has told me, yet her lease keeps getting renewed. She cursed at me once for leaving my car in the end of the driveway to unload groceries so I can bring them from the front. I had to call the cops on her once over a stupid incident that I apologized for profusely, and when my mother spoke to her, mentioned my late brother had passed away recently, she said she didn't give an F that he died. I can't even park my car in the driveway during the winter as she takes up the entire space and doesn't move back much closer to the garage that the landlord gave her permission to use. Even though we were the first tenants, so I have been on edge every winter night when the ban takes place, worrying if I'll get ticketed. I understand children are children, but now that they're home for the summer, they're in and out numerous times of the day. Not that it's a problem, but it is a problem when they slam the doors so hard to go out and in from the front that our walls rattle and sometimes makes the stuff that we have on them fall. Not once have I heard her scold them at all. She lets them out until 9 p.m. at night, not even checking on where they are. They are at least 5 and 7 years old. It's just a huge mess. I was wondering if I'm being overreacting, or do I have the right to be upset that our living situation is terrible with these people? Next year, we're planning on moving out, but for now, we're just stuck here. This commenter asks OP and gets an answer. Yes, move as soon as you can. Be sure to tell the landlord that the fact that the neighbor's allowed to continue harassing and bothering you is the reason you will not renew your lease. OP replies, we're staying here for 1 more year as our lease was renewed a couple of months ago, but a few months before it's up, we're finding a new place to stay and then to just do that. She once told me she wouldn't renew their lease due to other issues, but since she is more concerned about losing any income, she keeps renewing theirs. Would you file a police report if neighbors stole your package? Posted by 888 Christie. Basically the title. See, I've been trying to pick and choose my battles because I learned issues with neighbors usually escalate quickly, considering people can't take any criticism or they're on drugs around here. I know my meth head neighbors stole my package because I ordered very distinct beach pattern couch covers that were delivered on June the 30th. I couldn't find my package anywhere. Well, I thought about texting the landlord to check the cameras for June the 30th, but I never did. And then today, as I'm walking to my car, my neighbor's windows has one of the blinds open for once, and my distinct covers are over the bed in the room. I also don't like that these neighbors have my full real name now from the stolen package. These neighbors are the definition of meth heads, with cardboard in front of their front windows. This was a ground level side window that I have to pass to get to my car, and I decided to not knock on the door mad because I heard this man screaming at his wife before, and he looks like he's 50 and always high and drunk. He never has a shirt on, pants sagging with half of his butt out, and is just gross to be near in general. The craziest part is, this apartment building is 10 feet from campus dorms and basically on my college campus. But due to the decrease of enrollment in the last 2 or 3 years, landlords have been renting student housing to literally anyone. Would the police charge them just based off the pictures of the covers through their window? They could also pull up the camera from June 30th. There's video in the mailroom and facing my door. The landlord said he's working on getting it. He also called that neighbor to pretend that he had to look at an old fireplace in there, and the neighbor answered the landlord's call. Who the frick is this? What the frick do you want? And my landlord said he saw both covers when he went in there and said that he liked them and asked where I got it. Are you ready for this insane Karen who breaks the law internationally and thinks she can't get caught? This is called Too Racist to Enjoy a Tropical Island and Ends Up Paying the Price. Posted by Fish Flavored Candles. Nice name. I was just reminiscing about the absurdity of the situation that happened almost 2 years ago, and I've decided it's too good not to share. I'll be honest, it involves a lot of legal stuff that I'm not sure I'm talking about 100% correctly, but I can assure you this story is true, as is the end result. This might be a long one, so buckle up. For context, my mom is a traveling healthcare worker, not a nurse nor a doctor, just to clarify, and we're from the US. Usually, her contracts last from 8 weeks to 9 months, and she's worked all around the States. This results in an ungodly amount of airline miles that she likes to gift me so I can visit her whenever she's on contract. I get a nice vacation, she gets to see me, and I get to see her. Win-win-win. 2 years ago, after I graduated and was living at my mom and her long-term boyfriend's house in a COVID lockdown-induced depression and existential crisis, my mother scored her first overseas contract on a tropical island for 6 months, from June to the end of November. I'd gotten a crappy job in my hometown to start saving for whatever my next step was. 3 months in, my mom realized the downside to being on a very small island where international travel to and fro was a pain in the butt. She was lonely. This prompted a very bashful phone call in which she asked me if I wanted to take a break from working and come stay with her for a while. I jumped at the opportunity and we made arrangements to get my passport renewed, and we booked a ticket for me to stay with her for the last few months of her contract. All of this context comes to the main character, another US-based traveler, also not a nurse nor a doctor, who was my mother's coworker. Let's call her Mary. Mary, to put it bluntly, was racist as heck, and she was not enjoying getting paid to work on an island with crystal blue water on white sand beaches. Why? Because she failed to realize that she wouldn't be treating elite white resort goers. Nah. Turns out, the people who tend to be treated at the local hospital were the native islanders. You know, the people of color. She was also a COVID denier, Trumper, and an anti-vaxxer. Really just a blast to talk to, sarcasm. She was so livid about having to go to a grocery shop surrounded by POC, not what she called them. Hint, it's a pretty bad word, I do not say it. It didn't matter that she could go to the beach every day after work and was lodged in a multi-million-dollar vacation home on one of the highest points of the island with a gorgeous view. Nah, she was too busy recoiling at the sight of melanin. So yeah, she hated being there and wanted nothing more than just to leave. She latched onto my mother for company, and my mother reluctantly obliged her for a time due to the aforementioned loneliness. The main conflict of the story comes when my mother's contract had begun to reach its end, while Mary still had a month to go. Mary fought tooth and nail to renegotiate an early end to her contract, but was denied. So what does she do? She just leaves. Like just packs all of her stuff and departs to the US anyway. No biggie, right? She just doesn't get her remaining paychecks? Wrong. Here comes the beauty of contracts. See, the contract she agreed to comped her lodging on the condition that she fulfill her employment duties. Since she very clearly had no intention to, the contract was therefore voided and the compensation for her lodging was promptly retracted. She was now on the hook to pay back this country's health ministry for the several months of rent they had paid to house her in that gorgeous vacation home with a beautiful view. I'm not sure how much it would have been, but I'm guessing $1 million at the very least. Mary was now not only a crap employee in this country, but a literal fugitive. But she figured they could only arrest her and charge her if she ever stepped foot back on their soil, so she wasn't concerned. She was mostly right, but that wasn't the only thing this country's government could do. They proceeded to ring up the good old US government, notify them of the charges, and let them take it from there. They couldn't have her extradited, but they could ask the US to flag her passport until she paid them or faced charges. So the US government said, "Sure, buddy, we'll do it." And they did. Mary can't leave the US anymore. She can't even go to Canada. She tried to join her friends on vacation in Mexico, but wouldn't be allowed to cross the border. So if you ever think you screwed up a job really badly, just remember that you at least aren't an actual international criminal who can no longer leave the country. I'm not sure why her racist butt even wanted to go to Mexico. I heard there's a lot of Mexican people there. You won't settle until I send a file type your computer will open? Okay, posted by Meowschwitz in there. Client comes in with a seemingly simple auto collision. Client was hit, other driver got out and said something like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? I'm so sorry, I dropped my phone and I reached to get it." Client had a dash cam which recorded the whole thing, including the admission of guilt. Easy client, right? Turns out the admission was really important because the type of accident didn't make a determination of fault easy. Imagine a rear-end collision at a red light as an easy determination, but a collision at a four-way stop sign as a hard determination. When the cops showed up, the police report found both drivers at fault and did not mention any statements from the other driver. But we have our admission and my client's damages were above the other guy's policy limit, so I send a demand to the insurance company for policy limits. Note that the insurance company has an obligation to negotiate in good faith, which becomes important later. Lawyer from insurance reaches out and says, basically, "Look, my client says they were driving safely and the police report says shared fault. The initial offer is like 10 grand. I replied, "Yeah, but my client had a dash cam and it recorded your client admitting fault." It's important to understand that this was before dash cams were common. It wasn't my first case with a dash cam, but it might have been my third or fourth. No mention of the dash cam was made on the police report. Insurance attorney says, I imagine while twirling a dumb mustache, "Interesting, can you send me a copy of the video?" I said sure and send it over. He replies, "I can't open this." So I send him a link to VLC Media Player. It's a weird extension and Windows Media Player won't play it, but VLC will. Just follow the installer instructions and it should play no problem. He says, I'm not installing something to watch your alleged dashcam video. Send me a file I can play if you want me to consider it. This makes me unhappy, but I tried again. It will take less than a few minutes to install. You can watch the video and listen to your client at mid-fault. He says, we're done here until you send something that I can play. Cue malicious compliance music, country grammar. Start super cool montage of me going through other client files. Stop montage as I open a file and my face is bathed in a golden light radiating from an old Memorex CD. So I found a different dashcam video which did not contain any sound, but it could be played with a Windows Media. So I found a different dashcam video which did not contain any sound, but it could be played through Windows Media Player, and it was close enough to my current client's fax that if you weren't paying attention, it could pass. Other attorney just asked for a file he could play, right? I sent it over. He says, wow, no sound. Guess you're done, buddy. So I sued. During discovery, I sent a CD over which included the original video and a copy of VLC. He must have ignored it because he didn't say anything about it. During a pretrial motion hearing, I played the video for the judge. The judge might have heard the other lawyer's jaw hit his desk. The insurance attorney says, Your Honor, this is not the video he sent to me. In my mind's eye, I see the malicious compliance Death Star preparing to fire. Judge, I thought he might say that. Here's a copy of our emails where I described the video, provided the video, and sent instructions on how to play it. Here is a copy of the CD I sent with Discovery, which also has a video and a copy of VLC. Finally, here is a copy of the unrelated video which I sent to fulfill his request of something he could play. Other attorney asked for a recess. Because he refused the initial demand of policy limits I told him, I would argue that he did not negotiate in good faith. We settled for well above the policy limits. Client was very happy. P.S. Don't go to law school. #NotWorth.
Karen neighbor destroys my property and then calls the cops on me. I'm innocent. Click the video on your screen so you hear how this ends, and I'll see you there.